Hello, this is Brian Ty from the Hang-Ups. And you are listening to the New Wave Music Podcast.
Welcome back to the New Wave Music Podcast. Today we have a very special episode featuring two incredible musicians behind the band Third of Never. Doug MacMillan, known for his work with the legendary jangle pop band The Connells, the group behind such classics like Slackjawed. And Jon Dawson, a driving force in shaping the sound and vision of Third of Never. We're going to dive deep into their latest release, Damage the Pearl, explore stories behind its creation, hear about exciting collaborations, including a guest spot from Steve Kilbey of The Church, best known for the timeless Under the Milky Way.
Under the Milky Way tonight. Wish I knew what you were looking for. Might I know what you were finding.
And learn what it's like bringing this cinematic album to life. Doug, Jon, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having us.
Can you share the story of how Third of Never came together and how the lineup evolved to include both of you?
Jon, you want to take that away?
There was an early version of Third of Never when I was in college, 700 or 800 years ago, and that lineup included our current bass player Jody Haskins, and we started playing around Greenville, and then we got brave and started playing in Raleigh and Charlotte, made our way to Atlanta, and then a lot of boring stuff happened, and I ended up kind of relocating the band to New Jersey. I kind of fell in with the band, the Gripweeds, up there, and we were able to collaborate with some guys in the Smithereens for a while. And for several years, the band was based up there. My thought was, 10 shows in New York or New Jersey were worth 30 down here, which I'm not so sure that was great thinking on my part. But I couldn't, at the time down here, unless you were a jam band or death metal around here, just no one cared. And up there, it seemed to go down well, so I went up there. And after a time, I just got tired of spending all that time on the train and the turnpike, and tried one more time to see if the band would work down here. Reached out to Doug and sent him some demos, and he listened to what we had done previously. And luckily, he decided to come aboard, and it's been really fun. My friends and I used to pile in a car and go all over the place to see the Connells, and now we, get to create and perform with one of them. And that's the short version. The other version is about 8 hours long, so I didn't want to ruin your show.
Keep in mind that Jon was still living in Kinston when he was going up to New Jersey, so he wasn't kidding about those times on the turnpike, boy. Whew.
Jon, besides you and Doug, who else is in the current lineup of the band?
Jody Haskins. He's the OG bass player. He's kind of the lead bass player. If you've heard the songs, you know what I mean by that. Charles Cleaver is on keyboards. He's played with everybody, I believe, every band in North Carolina, I believe, and
Twice.
We've got a rehearsal coming up Sunday, and the Friday and Saturday before he has 3 gigs. So,
yeah, he's great. Both those guys are great musicians. Both Jody and Charles. Sorry.
And Brandon Ruth is our drummer. He's from Buffalo, New York. He's been down here for a long time, and he had kind of gotten out of playing. He still played at home a lot, and I was around him in a work environment one day, and I made a musical reference that usually no one would get, and he laughed. And I looked at him. I said, "You're a musician, aren't you?" And he was. And I roped him into this, and he's not miserable yet, so it's a good day.
Do you remember the musical reference? I'm dying to know.
Oh God, I don't know.
That's all right. That's all right. I was
It was
just
it was I think it had something to do with Steely Dan and the origin of the band's name, and which is kind of
Oh,
vulgar.
right,
Yeah.
right. Good call. Good call.
Yeah.
So, Doug, fans know you best from the Connells. What drew you to get involved with Third of Never?
John emailed. I guess he emailed me, but by way of our manager. And yeah, I like the songs that I heard. I like songs. Um, and that was pretty much all it took was to get a feel for just listening and what what I thought, where I thought he was coming from, writing wise, and the songs were good, and so I guess, John, I guess I was recording in Durham. This is going back, what is it, 7 years ago now, 6 years ago?
Something like that.
I mean, COVID really throws a wrench into my memory, at least as far as accuracy goes. But so I was recording in Durham with the Connells, and John and I were going to meet. So I walked up to the Biscuitville. No, not Biscuitville. It was Bojangles.
Bojangles.
Yeah, and he said he was in a white Impala, and there he was. And then what did we do? Did we drive to Raleigh?
Went over to the Flying Saucer.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I wonder if we met Bill there. Did we meet Bill Sullivan there?
The second time we were there, you were talking about him and how you hadn't seen him in forever, and you looked over my shoulder and he was sitting there.
Yeah, yeah. Bill Sullivan was the Steve, if you're familiar. He was the guy. He was the first sort of roadie / tour manager for the Replacements, like from 1981, and has gone on to tour manage. God, everybody.
Yeah.
Who was that?
I think he was working for Jimmy Vaughn a few years ago.
Yeah, Soul Asylum, Cat Power. Anyways, I don't even know why. I just remember he was there as well. But his brother, who was living in Raleigh at the time, so he was getting away from the cold weather up in Minneapolis. So yeah, I guess we just hung out and listened to, I guess when we drove to Raleigh, we listened to some more music, and then we set up a time to, I guess another time we went to the Connell's rehearsal space and worked on writing some melodies and stuff. If that sounds accurate, I think that's about right.
I had the little blue CD boom box. I hadn't even graduated to a Bluetooth speaker yet, and we would just play the songs, and you would just kind of sing gibberish melodies over them, and then we would work the lyrics. And I forgot to mention Def Leppard had a hand in us getting together.
That's right.
I was nervous about contacting you, and I was listening to a podcast, and you were talking to the guy about there was some festival or something you guys played in Europe, and you played on the same bill with Def Leppard.
Right. Yeah, in
And
Rome.
you were talking, and I think the interviewer was kind of sounded like he was smirking about Def Leppard, but you were brave enough to say, "Well, look, those guys write great hooks," and I'm like, if this guy's has so little ego that he'll actually, say Def Leppard wrote a great song, I'm not going to be scared to approach him. So that's kind of what I said. What the hell? I'll contact him.
I'm glad you listened to that podcast, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those guys are heavily influenced by glam, T-Rex, Bowie, Slade. And, it's a little cleaned up, but I mean, the songs are good. I mean, the specific songs in my mind. So, yeah, like I said before, I try not to judge things on anything outside of what you hear. sometimes you hear a song on the radio and you're like, oh, I don't like that because the production sucks. Well, forget the production. How about the tune? So that's trying to maintain that sort of approach to music. Sometimes it gets me in trouble, but
And we found that we both have an affinity for the Who album Quadrophenia. So
Oh boy,
there were some overlap in what we were obsessed with.
absolutely, yeah. John's one of the biggest Who fans I've ever met. I thought I was a fan of the Who, but John knows his stuff. Boy, it's cool.
So, Doug, how has your approach to singing, like from the Connells to now a Third of Never, changed?
It's a good question. I haven't even thought about that. Like with these songs, I was just kind of coming up with ideas for melodies, and come up with something that would sound like a chorus. And I'm these guys kind of rock, maybe in a different way, a little bit harder than the Connells, but we still have our moments. The Connells, but so I'm probably singing a little harder, if that makes any sense. Plus, there's a volume thing where, like, just the necessity of being heard and hearing yourself. It's not that they're too loud. It's just that the dynamics are different, if that makes any sense. I don't know. But it's not that different, but the melodies are different in the sense that John uses different. John is a master of tunings, and every once in a while he'll go, guess what, I'm in standard tuning on on this song. It's like, all right,
And standard
cool.
tuning, they throw a party, yeah.
They have a celebration, but it's not an issue. I think it's cool.
The new album's titled Damage the Pearl original soundtrack. That's such an intriguing concept. Can you share the ideas how that came about? Was there ever an actual film in mind, or did the music itself inspire the soundtrack approach?
Take it, John.
Well, like he said earlier, this album sort of started during the COVID era when it would, you could work for a few days, then you'd have to stop, and so that during that downtime, I just started to notice that thematically there were some loose connections between some of the songs, and I got the bright idea. Let's make a road. You could do a road movie, probably that wouldn't be that expensive, and it would still look and sound like a movie. And we spoke to a couple of directors, but we ended up working with Brent Clark out of Raleigh, who's a great director, and he's really good with working with non-actors. Doug has been in several movies. I have not, but he's managed to get good stuff out of everybody. And the movie is pretty much done. We have one major scene left.
Right.
And the first video we floated out a few months ago for the song Grab the Ground actually has scenes from the movie in it.
Yeah,
So there will be yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's okay. And the movie will be coming out sometime in the next. It'll be
Decade.
sometime 2026. That's the best I can say.
Yeah. It's sort of like it sounds like it's like after the Gold Rush, the Neil Young album. He wrote those songs. Neil Young wrote those songs based on a screenplay that Dean Stockwell had written, but the movie never got made. It was just, I don't even know if anybody knows what the screenplay is. So the difference between us and that project is that we actually made a movie. We actually did it, and we're almost finished.
And it's not like Magical Mystery Tour where the band is just driving around doing, dopey things. There's a great story. There's some good laughs in it. There's some really poignant stuff. And
yeah.
Doug is actually having to do some real acting. Thank God. I don't really there's a couple of spots where I have to be a smart ass, but that's not really a stretch for me. Doug is having to actually be an actor in several spots. So better him than me.
I had to openly weep.
Yes.
It was so easy. It's scary. I guess my emotions are close to the surface. I don't know, from all this singing. I don't know, but at one point we were shooting. We were at the beach, and our two characters are having an argument. We seem to argue a lot in that movie, as I recall, or enough. And and I guess we did a few takes of this one thing where we park the car and get out of the car and walk. Anyways, at one point we got into doing another take, and John says, "I don't want to yell at Doug anymore."
Well, I mean, to do it convincingly, you really got to
You got to do it.
you got to be a jackass. And
Yeah,
it's just,
yeah. I mean, John said he had no experience, but if you had told me that, I wouldn't believe it. He was what a natural, man. I was like, this guy's got it. I mean, it was. I haven't really looked at any of it, but it seemed like during the time we were filming stuff, it seemed pretty natural to me. From whatever that's worth. But
well, the fact that we were filming 2 inches from the highway and there were 18 wheelers whizzing by like a foot from our head kind of
Right.
added to the, it might not have been great acting. It may have been just getting the words correct while frightened. Whatever it seemed to work.
Our actual fear came through.
Yes.
But if nothing else, we had fun. It was, John went into the water. Well, we don't want to do spoiler alerts, but yeah. There's a lot going on. Hopefully you'll get to see it at some point, Steve. I don't know.
Looking forward to it.
Thanks.
Since you brought up the lead single, let's talk about that. Grab the Ground Running.
If the mystery has no clue, did I thank you for taking all the time I knew? When I tell you, won't be anything I said. We grab the ground, reaching round for you, only you, only you.
It introduces listeners to the album's cinematic concept. John, what inspired the lyrics or the musical direction of this track, and how did it come to emerge as the primary single?
In my mind, it was that's the kind of song I would love to hear on the radio. It's kind of moody, but it's still catchy without being annoying. And I have lots of conditions for songs, and I'm a malcontent when it comes to that. But the music is something I threw together with Jody a while back. He kind of had the riff for the verse. I had the chorus. We both did the stuff in the middle. The lyrics were about an incident that happened that is sort of depicted in the movie, but it involved a bunch of teenagers at a party and someone, when they were drunk, deciding to lay under someone's car right under the tire, and something horrific may or may not have happened. And the vocal melody fell out of Mr. MacMillan, I think, the first time he heard it within like 2 minutes. It was one of the easier ones to write, actually.
That's one of my favorites, I think.
And I thought that would be a great first statement for this album. And, I know everyone's, talking about Kilbey's involvement, and he did an awesome job, but I wanted the first thing out there to be, just the band itself. And we've gotten the people who I know would tell me if they hated it or seemed to like it. So far,
That's
so good.
It's good to have honest friends, right?
Sometimes. Yes.
Depending on the song, right?
Right.
So, Doug, I've got a follow-up on this question for you. The vocal delivery, as John said that you did, was especially striking. Or how did you approach this track with the mindset, maybe compared to previous Third of Never songs?
I don't know if I knew the story when we worked up the tune. Did you already have some melody stuff in the verse? I can't remember.
Rolling Down a Hill is the only thing I had worked out melody-wise. Everything else we threw in together. You came up with that great, you sang some kind of nonsense lyrics just the first time you heard it, and everything worked. And then just wrote some lyrics to fit that. And then I think you molded them some more after that. It was just kind of ping pong after a while.
It seemed pretty obvious to me where the kind of the chorus would be, you know what I mean? And so I didn't really do anything. I don't feel like I approached that one any differently than the others, but it's kind of got a built-in. I mean, like I told John, he liked the melodies. I'm like, the melodies are in there. I just had to find them. I mean, that's the cool thing about these songs, is that it wasn't a struggle. I've done that in the past with other people where they had music and they wanted me to write vocal melodies, and sometimes it worked. But in the first few times I tried to do that, it was a complete failure. Just didn't. I didn't. I think I at that time was more likely to have some success with while playing a guitar, accompanying myself. But I didn't need to do that on this at all. This was like you said, it kind of happened quickly.
Rightly or wrongly, is the way I've always tried to approach it. Is I try to make the instrumental, the music itself, interesting on its own before we
Yeah,
even start thinking about vocals. I don't that may be the wrong
that's
way to go,
rightly.
but
Rightly.
yeah. And so you don't want to just strum a G and a C and hand it to a guy and say, "Okay, make it special." I mean,
Right.
that's kind of that's kind of lazy.
That's
So
where I had trouble in the past.
we try to rig it where the music would work as an instrumental, and if you get it to that point, then worry about the vocal. But I know Elton John and Bernie Taupin, I think they do it exactly backwards, and they've had a couple of hits, so who knows?
Yeah, some people I mean, I know, referencing those kind of people, like Bob Dylan has, I don't know how many of his songs where the words were written already, which is an interesting approach, but I find it more difficult to make things fit. But anyways,
Well,
so
John, you kind of mentioned it on the song Rolling Down a Hill. How did that collaboration with Steve Kilbey from the church come about?
Over the years, I was a writer for a newspaper for years, and they gave me the freedom to write about music stuff that interested me. They didn't force me to go cover anything that I wasn't really into, which is most people don't get that luxury. And I've always been a fan of the church and Kilby's work, whatever he did. And I did a few podcasts with him, and he started working with this guy named Martin Kennedy. And Martin records under the name All India Radio.
oh right,
And
yeah,
predominantly he does it's very interesting instrumental music. It's kind of spacey stuff. It's kind of Floydy, but it's not, it's kind of chill out music with a little bit of a tiny edge to it. And I bought some of his stuff off of Bandcamp and did a few podcasts with him and just became, internet buddies. And at some point, he and Steve Kilbey started making albums together just under the name Kilby Kennedy. And I weaseled my way to Kilby through Martin is the short answer.
So what about this particular song made you feel that Steve would be the right fit for it?
I don't know. There was just, I knew I wanted the vocal to kind of sound like maybe a voiceover in an old film noir detective movie. When I think of that, as far as rock and roll or pop voices, I think Steve Kilbey.
he's got that low register. It seems to fit perfectly with that particular song. Yeah,
Yeah. And I just knew that his voice and Doug's voice would sound great together. And I also knew I wanted a female vocal in the middle. And my friend Stephen Mazzucci from the band, The Lost Patrol in New York, he was working on a project called The Lovely Intangibles, and their singer is named Tara Tish Wallace. He connected me with her, and they recorded her vocal in New York. And it just, usually if I have an idea for something before we record it, it ends up it's a disaster and gets dumped at the demo stage. But for some reason, this one time it worked. And it just,
yeah. We have
everything.
3 lead vocals, I guess you could say. It's like a 3-part harmony kind of thing in the chorus, right?
And it's strange because that song is so nursery rhyme simple. And, the vocal just follows the guitar line, and most of the song is on one string at a time other than the bridge.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, it's an incredibly simple song with these layers and layers of vocals. It seemed to work to us, and the feedback has been pretty good. There's a radio campaign going on right now, and it's about 7 or 8 stations that is charting on their local charts, and the Spotify ads are, which I know Spotify is killing music, but we don't really have any place that'll give it an airing and generate a few pennies. We have to send it. So, but as far as from an artistic point, it feels like a home run to me.
Another standout track for me was Flares Part 2. The infectious guitar, the percussion riff, paired with Doug's vocal delivery, really pulled me in. What can you share about this, about the story or creative process behind this track?
Well, let me get my stuff. On the second Third of Never album, there's a track called Flares. On that album, there's Flares Part 1 and Flares Part 3. I wanted the track to kind of be done the way we did it here. But the people I was working with then, they had an idea to do it a different way. So I said, I tell you what, we're going to put the little acoustic thing as Flares Part 1. And then we're going to do the full song as Part 3. And I said, at some point in the future, I'm going to do it this other way. And it's also a way to kind of maybe get people curious. If they see Flares Part 2, maybe they'll go back and look for Part 1. And
there you go.
Realize there's another album out there, and vice versa. But
that was my thought. That was a question I had. Is there a Flares Part 1? I'm glad to know there's a Part 1 and Part 3. I'll definitely have to check those out.
It worked, John. Your method worked.
There you go. We're always be closing, but
always be closing.
It's really cool to hear a vocal with Doug singing like that, because, and he's underselling, but the Connells do rock. Their live album they put out a year or so ago, Set the Stage. You can go listen to that and tell they rock as hard as anybody else. But it's just cool to hear him singing like that on a studio track, and because Doug and I both like 8,000 kinds of music, but he does like some heavy stuff, and it's really cool to have that vocal from him like that.
I just was awakened a little while ago by Touch Too Much by AC/DC, one of my favorites. It's a great song. Oh, what a great song.
I'm also really curious about the title track, Damage the Pearl. Can you share the story or inspiration behind that song?
That's one of the alternate tuning songs that Doug likes to make fun of.
No, I like those. I like them.
Well, years ago, our bass player, Jody Haskins, turned me on to how to tune to drop D, which, probably every guitar player on the planet knew how to do other than me. But, and so I got into a guitar player named John Fahey a few years ago. He's just an acoustic guitar player, but he can hold your attention. And he's not like Leo Kottke, just throwing immaculate solos at your face. He's described as primitive guitar, but I was reading about him, and they said one of his favorite tunings was, and I'm not going to give the tuning out. I'm going to make people go look, but this specific tuning got my attention. So I put my guitar in that tuning, and that whole riff and progression fell out in like 10 minutes. And
wow.
And Doug and I sat at his magic dining room table. Every time we sit at that table to work on something good happens. Yeah. We sat there with a studio recording of the instrumental track. I had this phrase that my grandfather used to say, go get that across the way, which I guess is just a Southern thing. And somehow that led into, and there was another phrase, like if you were cropping tobacco and you were as you move across the field and up into the corner, the rows get shorter, and they would say, how much do you have left? And the guy would say, well, we're in the short rows now. Right. So this was originally called Short Rows. And then we kind of got into this stuff. There's a Sufi poem, I believe, that mentions Damage the Pearl, and got into that. And I'm like, that is an incredible title. Doug was cool with it. And we sat at his magic table and knocked those lyrics out, I think, in about an hour. That might be my favorite track on the record.
I'm going to start renting out this time at that table for songwriters.
No, you just.
So there's several other songs I just wanted to ask you about that I think would really connect well with our audience. One of them being that the instrumental track, Frank and Paul's Theme, really stood out to me. How did that kind of take shape, and how does it take place in the overall arc of the album?
That's the one that started as a acoustic thing. Jody and I recorded at my home a while back. It was very interesting. I think it was in one of those alternate tuning deals, and we took it to the studio, and Benji Johnson at Earth Tones, he's phenomenal at taking. Oh, yeah. If you have something you've recorded at home and you cannot recreate the texture in the studio, he'll say, well, we'll take it and add to it here. Because a lot of studio guys, will just spit blood at you at the mere suggestion, but Benji seems to welcome it. And
speaking of magic, man, he's amazing. Yeah, he's really good.
He's incredibly good. It's always a lighthearted, great hang. He's doing a lot of ADR stuff there, and he's working with Eric Gales and being nominated for Grammys all over the place. Right. But
he's in Greensboro.
Earth Tones. And we took that track to him, and Tony Stiglitz was in the studio that day with us doing some drum stuff, and I said, you mind just trying to put some drums to that? And he just improvised something. And then Steve Potak from the Connells, we were doing something with him for the Electric Forgiveness Project. And I said, do you see if you can? It was basically, it just kind of got passed around, and everyone improvised parts. And every time we added it, just sounded better and better. And we even got Benji, if you pay attention, there's a string note that starts at the beginning of the song and holds the entire time. And Doug did these really creepy, cool backing vocals. And that's a really good headphone track, too, because if you put on the headphones, you can actually hear stuff that you might not notice just coming out of a normal speaker. Right. And Doug's vocal is very creepy in a cool way. And it seems there's a couple of scenes in the movie where the two main characters are going through some not so great stuff, and it seems to tie in well with that.
Another song I really found myself enjoying was the slower yet very electric feel of 20 Million Miles.
20 million miles away, 20 million miles to go until I can sit and stay. 20 million miles to go, 20 million miles of space that just seems to get in my way. Remember.
What
All
can you
right.
tell me about that track?
That one, that started off. I've got this little yellow box. I got it for $15 off of eBay. It's called a K-oscillator. Korg makes them.
That thing is
Korg.
amazing. That's an amazing item, that thing, boy. Whew. The
And
K-oscillator. Yeah.
it's just a little yellow box, and I can sit in the living room while the kids are watching a movie, and I can run the K-oscillator into a Tascam digital recorder, and then run headphones, and I can sit there and experiment with stuff. And the sounds it shoots out are already, they're in time and they're studio quality. You don't have to mix them or do anything to them. And that's another one where we just, as an experiment, added drums, and like, well, this is pretty good. And Benji helped me figure out what the chords were, because I don't, the music is there, but it's really hard to tell what that electronic stuff, what key it's in, or at least it is to me. So Benji helped figure out where, what the couple of chords were. So we added an acoustic guitar, went to Doug and said, you mind singing over this acoustic track with an electronic blip going on behind it? And he was
Right.
like, no problem. And he worked Dones into it. So what more could you want?
I referenced Doan's pills into. You remember the backache pills? I don't know if you're familiar with those, Steve, but one of those over-the-counter products that probably doesn't do anything, but people still buy. Maybe it rhymed with something, I don't know.
Scones, I think.
Scones, yeah, it was scones. That's right. So we had fun doing this record, as you can imagine.
Another standout track for me was definitely Wild Peace.
Tape, fertilizer and heat. Masked man robbed the bank from his seat. Let me sift through your debris. Bits of you tangled up in me.
Can you share the story behind that song?
That's you, Dougie boy.
Oh gosh, it's so funny that you say that, because so I went to East. I don't know how much you know about North Carolina, Steve, but where John lives is what, 30 minutes from Greenville, North Carolina, John?
Pretty much, yeah.
And I'm in Raleigh, which is an hour and a half from that part of the state. And I went to college at East Carolina University, and I was on the swimming team. And my roommate, my freshman year, was from West Orange, New Jersey, which is near Newark. And he was just a character, man. For instance, he was having some major culture shock. I don't know how much you know about Newark, New Jersey, but it's on the other end of the spectrum as far as urban or layout or whatever, compared to like.
It's like going from the Concorde to a rickshaw.
Yeah, exactly. A tut-tut, tuk-tuk, whatever they're called. Anyways, one weekend, I said, hey, man, you want to go to Raleigh with me? I asked him if he wanted to go to Raleigh with me. And so we spent the weekend in Raleigh. And on the way from Greenville to Raleigh, he just kept looking out the window, because it's just farmland. It's just, tobacco, whatever. And he, at one point, was like, put up some buildings. I was like, dude, this is where they grow, anyways. But he was, I don't want to get too far into it, but he had a knack for trouble. And that trouble, I think he lasted about a year in college. And let's just say that he hooked up with a bad crowd and ran afoul. And legal issues, I'll say. Let's leave it at that. But so I found myself writing about someone, and I realized that whoever I was writing about could be, in third person, could be that guy. And I don't know how much I can say about it, because I'd hate to embarrass him if he ever heard it. But
Well, that's another one we got at the Magic Table, and the lyrics took about I don't know, maybe an hour.
Yeah.
Maybe.
The wild piece is a term I heard. There was a when I was at ECU. I made a friend who in the dorm who the following year had moved into an apartment, and I got in touch with him. He says, "Come on by and hang out." And so I went by his place, and I hadn't seen this guy in probably 4 or 5 months. And I walked up and I said, "Hey, man." He goes, "What's going on, wild piece?" And I've never heard anybody say that since, except for me. So, it's just like a wildcat or a badass or whatever, however you want to word it. But I just like that word. I like that term. I'm trying to get it to, to catch on, but it's, I don't think it's going to happen. Maybe this song will do it. Maybe it'll become part of the current jargon. I don't know. We'll see. But it is about a guy who's got himself into some bad trouble. Does that
So
sound
towards
right,
the
John?
end,
Does that sound right? I'm trying to make
Yeah,
sure.
like I don't want to. I would love to explain some of those lyrics, but I don't want to overstep what we can say. But if you listen to the words and pay attention, you can kind of figure out what happened. But
Yeah.
we're not going to say.
so a question I've been dying to ask ever since I heard the album is towards the end of the record, the album takes on more of a psychedelic feel with the spoken
Right.
word tracks of Bunny Bread.
Grande organic chai tea. 2 packets stevia. Steamed almond milk. Gingerbread soy latte. Substitute extra soy milk. Substitute rice-a-roni. The San Francisco tree.
Salted in the shell.
Listen, kid, you stay on your side of the fence, and I'll stay on mine. Then we'll get along just fine. You look like the product of a broken home to me. These new college boys ain't got nothing on us. God knows how many marriages I broke up back in those days. Needless breakups.
And Alone at the Fair.
Please report to first aid. You've fallen down again. And we have a last one, Mr. Benji. Mr. Benji. Please report to first aid station. Your mother is calling you on a call from out of state.
What inspired the shift in this direction? How does this fit together into the larger flow of the album?
That's a good question about how does it fit. I guess it just kind of does, but the salted in the shell thing is, I'm a big fan of Robert Mitchum, the actor Robert Mitchum, and he was in a movie called Cape Fear in the early 60s. He played a criminal who's been in jail and comes out and is bound to make the attorney that sent him to jail pay. And he's just got so many great lines. And there's a scene in a bar where he asks the bartender, he goes, "Hey, hey, Buster, you got them salted peanuts salted in the shell?" And the guy goes, "No." He goes, "Okay, forget it." Like there's a whole bunch of lines of dialogue that Mitchum really nailed that character. So I'm always quoting those lines. And John had the bright idea of, throwing that into a song, which was fine with me. I didn't have to write a melody, so that was good. just talk.
And there's a scene in the movie where that'll be playing in the background. The two main
Right.
characters walk into a place that's filled with, let's just say, that kind of energy.
Yeah.
So that'll be
that's-
coming out of a radio in a scene in the movie, and it
like a little transistor. Yeah.
it'll all make perfect sense.
And
You said
and
convincingly.
like the carnival, the that's clearly somebody walking through a state fair or county fair type space, all the background. It's very cinematic, I mean, which is cool because it fits the other project attached to this thing, which is a film.
And there's a couple of scenes in this movie where, say, Doug's character does some things to kind of get on a different plane, we'll say, and
A different perspective.
yeah, different perspective, um, and kind of Carl Sagan inverted. But there's that kind of more psychedelic music, and that's a kind word for it, Steve. Thank you.
Steve, I'll tell you what, man. That was one of the first things I noticed about some of John's songs is that there seemed to be that kind of a, like you said, like a like psychedelic rock. And I mean, there's no reason why I would expect you to do that kind of music, John, but it's in there. It's really cool. I mean, even some of the there's some songs that remind me of Echo and the Bunnymen, which is an '80s psychedelic in my mind, an '80s psychedelic band. And I mean, John hadn't heard some of the songs, so he innately has this sort of tendency, and it's cool. I like it. I mean, John's not taking LSD or anything, far from it. So it's just kind of cool.
I'm the squarest guitar player on the planet, but I've always liked psychedelic music, but I don't necessarily like it to sound like it's a Xerox of 1968. I mean,
Yeah.
I think you can do modern psychedelic music.
Exactly. Yeah. It's cool.
So with this new album out, are there any plans for an expanded tour to take Damage on the Pearl on the road?
We're doing shows around the Triangle right now. We've got one coming up September 26th in Garner at a place called Locked and Loaded.
I'm excited about that one.
Yeah, and I think there's going to be some stuff around the Chapel Hill area after that, and we're going to try to get into some festivals and stuff. And hopefully, when the movie comes out, the plan is to kind of do a thing where maybe the movie and the band go on tour together to places where maybe you can show the movie, have a Q&A, the band play a little bit, kind of turn it into let's get pompous and say a multimedia event.
That'd be something we could do.
cool.
I mean, people do it,
And, bands putting an album out now, nobody cares really. So the movie was another way to say, there's more to these songs than just audio wallpaper. There's something here.
Yeah.
I mean, if you just want to listen to the record, you don't have to know what's linking them together. And it was just like Who's Next. It's a great album, but if you know what the story is behind them, the songs, it just makes a really good cake taste 10 times better. But
those were the songs that were supposed to be in the Lifehouse project, right? Or some of them?
All other than the Entwistle's My Wife, they were all supposed to be. And then if you get the box set with all 24 songs in the order they're supposed to be, and that story, it's it makes it a little deeper experience. But some people just want to whistle to something while they wash dishes, and that's just as valid. So whatever works.
Right.
So what's the best place that we can keep tabs on when the movie's coming out? Any other additional tour dates? How's the best way to keep up with Third of Never?
I'll give you two websites, and they're linked to each other. The first one I would give you would just be thirdofnever.com, spelled all the way out. And
no
the other
numerals.
No numerals. And now the other one does have numerals. I just realized.
Oh, sorry.
No, third of never is spelled out. The
Okay.
other website is 343collective.com.
Right.
It's the numbers 3, 4, and 3, then the word collective.com. And that's just an umbrella site for Third of Never. And there's a kind of a project associated with that called Electric Forgiveness. John Bundrick is on that stuff. He's on this he's on all the Third of Never records. He played
That's
with the
Rabbit,
Who, Bob
right?
Marley. That's Rabbit, yeah.
Rabbit's the guy who's the keyboard player was for the Who for many, many years, right?
Yeah, and there's links to stuff I'm doing with this singer-songwriter, amazing guitarist named John Guy Barwick that's up there.
Yes.
He and I and Jody and Brandon are working with him on this side thing called the Bipolaroids, which is improvisational music that, everything's under that umbrella. So if we are doing anything of note, we'll yak about it up there. And you can keep up with Doug. What is it? Is it the Connells.com?
I think so, yeah. That sounds right.
Well, Doug, Jon, thank you so much for joining us here today on the podcast and giving us a deeper look into Third of Never and the new album, Damage the Pearl. It's been a real treat hearing the stories behind these songs, the creative process that brought this cinematic project to life. For our listeners, be sure to check out the album. I trust you guys can stream it as well. It's probably on all the on Spotify, all the other platforms, and on your website.
It's on all those places. And if they want a CD, they can go to jamrecordings.com, and our vinyl is for sale and on Bandcamp, and the streaming, you know, that stuff's everywhere.
John's a busy guy.
This album's definitely a journey worth taking, and seek that album out. I'm looking forward to seeing the movie in 2026. Thanks again for being here, and I look forward to seeing what's next from Third of Never.
All right, man. Take care.
Thanks, guys.
We'll see you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
A big thank you to Doug MacMillan and Jon Dawson for joining us today and giving us a closer look at Third of Never and the new album, Damage the Pearl. It's been a fascinating journey hearing about the stories, collaborations, and vision that brought this cinematic project to life. Be sure to join us on our next episode, where we're going to be doing a deep dive interview to discover a band that came highly recommended by one of our listeners. Think of them as a darker wave version of Tears for Fears. The band we're going to be exploring together is Night, and you won't want to miss it. If this is your first time listening, we thank you and ask that you please subscribe. That's a great way to support us. And if you enjoyed this episode, please feel free to leave us a 5-star review. You can find us on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Just search for New Wave Music Podcast. We'll catch you on the next episode.